The Paterikon of the Kiev Caves Monastery. Discourse 8, Part 10. How the Holy One was glorified, and the divine light shone forth. This is what appeared to Sophrony, the superior of the monastery of the holy Archangel Michael. As he was heading for the monastery one night, it was a dark night, just above the monastery of the blessed Theodosius, he saw a light. He marveled and praised God, saying, "How great is thy goodness, O Lord, that thou hast shown forth such a lamp in this holy place, this holy man, who thus shines forth and illuminates his monastery." Many others saw the same thing, and often related what they had seen. When the princes and the boyars heard about the monk's virtuous life, they would come to the great Theodosius, confess their sins to him, and depart after receiving much profit. They would also come again and bring him something from their possessions, to comfort the brethren and help towards building the monastery. Some of them also gave villages for the needs of the church and the brethren. The Christ-loving Prince Izyaslav, who was then occupying his father's throne, especially loved the Blessed One. He often summoned Theodosius to his house, and many times went himself to see him. He would drink his fill of spiritual words, and then depart. Henceforth God magnified that place, and multiplied the blessed ones within it through the prayers of his servant. Our father Theodosius had instructed the porter that he was not to open the gates to anybody after dinner, and that no one was to enter the monastery until vespers, since the brethren rested in the middle of the day from the night prayers and the morning singing. Prince Izyaslav's visit. One day at noon, the Christ-loving Prince Izyaslav came, as was his custom, with only a few servants, for when he wished to go to the Blessed One, he dismissed all his boyars to their own homes, and came to him with only 5 or 6 servants. He came, as I have said, and dismounted from his horse, since he never entered the monastery's courtyard on horseback, and went up to the gates and told the porter to open them, as he wished to come in. The porter said to him, "Our great father has given orders that we are not to open the gates to anyone until it is time for vespers." Then the Christ-loving prince told him, so that he would know who it was, "It is I, open the gates for me alone." But the porter, not knowing that it was the prince, answered, "I told you, the superior ordered me, that even if the prince should come, the gates are not to be opened. But if you will be patient for a while, until vespers." He answered, "I am the prince. Won't you open the gates for me?" The porter looked up and recognized the prince. He was filled with fear, but did not open the gates. He ran and told the Blessed One. Meanwhile, the prince stood patiently before the gates, in this respect imitating St. Peter, the chief apostle. For when he was led out of prison by an angel, and came to the house where the disciples were, and knocked at the door, the maidservant got up and saw Peter standing there. For gladness she did not open the gate, but ran and told the disciples about his arrival. Similarly, this man from fright did not open the gates, but quickly ran and announced the arrival of the Christ-loving Prince to the Blessed One. The Blessed One came out, saw the prince, and prostrated himself before him. After this the Christ-loving Prince Izyaslav said, "Father, what is your order about which the monk spoke, that even if the prince should come, he is not to be admitted?" The Blessed One answered, "The order, my good master, is so that the brethren should not depart from the monastery in the middle of the day, but should then rest on account of the service at night. Your zeal for our Holy Lady the Theotokos is divinely inspired and full of blessing and profitable for your soul, and we rejoice at your arrival." They both went to the church. The Blessed One said a prayer, and they sat down. And so the Christ-loving prince drank his fill of the honeyed words that came from our venerable father Theodosius, and, receiving great profit from them, departed for his house, praising God. From that day he began to love Theodosius more and more, and considered him as one of the first holy fathers. He was very obedient to him, and did everything which our great and venerable father Theodosius told him to do. The blessed Varlam's death. The blessed Varlam, the son of the boyar Ioan, and superior of the monastery of St. Demetrios, founded by the Christ-loving Prince Izyaslav, left for the holy city of Jerusalem, and after visiting the holy places there, he returned to his monastery. Some time after this, he went to Constantinople, where he visited all the monasteries, and bought necessities for his own monastery, and then came back to his own country. While on his way, and actually already in his own country, he fell seriously ill. When he reached the town of Vladimir, he entered a nearby monastery called the Holy Mountain, and reposed peacefully in the Lord. Having come to the end of his life, he told his companions to take his body to the blessed Theodosius monastery and bury it there, and he gave orders that the things which he had bought in Constantinople, icons and other necessities, should be given to the Blessed One. They did as he had instructed them. They brought his body, buried it in blessed Theodosius monastery, on the right side of the church, where his tomb is to this day, and gave everything to the venerable one, as he had ordered. The departure of the blessed Isaiah, After this, the Christ-loving Prince Iziaslav chose one of the brethren from blessed Theodosius monastery called Isaiah, who shone forth in the monastic life, and appointed him superior of his own monastery of St. Demetrios. Later he was made Bishop of Rostov because of his virtuous life, and there they honor him among the saints, since he received from God the gift of working miracles. The arrival of the holy Nikon. After the death of Rostislav, prince of that island, the great Nikon was asked by the people there to go to Prince Slaslav and ask him to let his son sit on that throne. When he arrived at the city, he came to the blessed Theodosius monastery. When they saw each other, they both fell down together and prostrated themselves. Then they embraced each other and wept a lot, since they had not seen each other for a long time. After this, the blessed Theodosius begged him not to depart from him while they were both in the flesh. Then the great Nikon gave his promise, saying, "I shall just go, arrange things for my monastery, then I shall at once return here." This he did, for when he arrived at the island with Prince Gleb, and the latter settled on the town's throne, Nikon did return. He came to the monastery of our great father Theodosius, and gave all his possessions into the Blessed One's hand, and gladly subordinated himself to him. The blessed Theodosius loved him greatly, and regarded him as a father. So if he went away anywhere, he entrusted him with looking after the brethren and instructing them, since he was senior to them all. Moreover, when he himself was instructing the brethren in church with spiritual discourses, he told the great Nikon to teach them by reading from books, and likewise instructed our venerable father Stefan, who was then prior. Later he became the superior of the monastery after blessed Theodosius' death, and finally became Bishop of Vladimir. Now that I have told you about those people, I shall confine myself to my account of the blessed Theodosius and those worthy achievements which he accomplished through God's grace, the Holy One's industry and diligence. Now I shall discuss this shining light, our great holy father Theodosius, for he was indeed a man of God, a light visible in the world, shining forth to all his monks in humility of mind and obedience, and in his other labors. Every day he worked with his hands, and he often went out into the bakehouse and worked with those who were doing the baking, rejoicing in his spirit as he kneaded the dough and baked the loaves. For, as I said before, he had a strong and powerful body. He exhorted and strengthened all those who were laboring so hard, and comforted them, urging them not to slacken their zeal in any way in the work they were doing. One day, when they wanted to celebrate the holiday of the Holy Theotokos, there was no water. The aforementioned Theodore, who told me many things about this illustrious man, was then cellarer. He went and told the blessed Theodosius that there was no one carrying water. Then the Blessed One quickly got up and began to carry water from the well. One of the brethren, seeing him carry water, quickly went and fetched some of the brethren, who came eagerly and carried water until there was more than enough. On another occasion, when no wood had been gathered for cooking, the cellarer Theodore went to the blessed Theodosius and said, "Father, would you please tell one of the brethren who is idle to go and prepare the wood that is needed?" The Blessed One said, "Look, I am idle, I shall go." It was then time for dinner, and the Blessed One told the brethren to go to the refectory, but he himself took an axe and began to cut wood. As the brethren were going out after their meal, they saw their venerable superior cutting wood and working hard at it, and each one took up his axe too, and prepared enough wood for many days. Such was the diligence towards God of our blessed and spiritual father Theodosius, for he possessed true humility and great meekness, in this imitating Christ, the true God, who said, "Learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart." Thus, casting his mind back to his teaching, he humbled himself and made himself least of all, working and serving others in this way, going out to work before everyone, and taking his place in church before everybody as well. Often, when the great Nikon was sitting and binding books, the Blessed One would sit near him and spin the threads needed for this task. Such was his humility and simplicity. No one ever saw him lying down or pouring water over his body. He washed only his hands. His clothing was a hair shirt, which pricked his body. Over this was another shirt of very poor quality, which he put on so that the hair shirt which he wore would not be visible. Many thoughtless people mocked him and insulted him because of his poor clothing, but the Blessed One gladly accepted their reproaches, always bearing in mind the words of the Lord and rejoicing and taking comfort from them. "Blessed are ye when men shall revile you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice in that day, and leap for joy, for great is your reward in heaven." Recalling these things, the Blessed One took comfort from them, and bore patiently the reproaches and insults of everybody.